and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful, sunny Budapest. I hope everybody has had a productive and healthy week so far and is looking forward to a good weekend. Students, in this class, we are looking at IELTS Task 1, comparing multiple pie charts. This was sent to us by one of our members. It's one of the perks, the advantages of being a member of the channel, that you can request classes. We have 4 different tiers of membership. You can check those out. Click the join button beside the subscribe button to become a member. And hi Awaz, one of our members is already here. While we wait for some more, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Definitely check us out there. And for the general version of the exam, check us out at gieltshelp.com. On both of those websites, we have loads and loads of materials for you. And just as a special help, you can use R4TYJ, this code, to get a 20% discount on our premium packages. Hi Pavan, hi Hassan, hi Pooja, hi Bekjan. Again, our websites, they look like this. This is the academic with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join the premium package. And for the general version, it's the green background. It's this big red button here. Hi Dip, hi Elena. Members, can you hear me okay? We were doing a bit of troubleshooting yesterday to fix the audio, and it should be clear. If it's not, let me know. We have some new audio equipment on the way, but as you can imagine, it's tricky to get audio equipment these days as everybody is presenting online. So let me know if there's any static or crackle or breaks in the audio. I definitely want you to hear me loud and clear and not have a repeat of yesterday. So if there's any problem with the audio, let me know, okay? As soon as you hear that. All right, cool. So again, of course, for those of you who do know our websites, also be familiar with our apps. You can download Academic IELTS Help, link it to your aehelp.com account, and you can also download General IELTS Help from your app store and link it to your gieltshelp account. So make sure you do that. Thanks, members. I see that it's all clear right now, so that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear that. If anybody has questions at any time or wants to send me a request for these members chat classes, adrian@aehelp.com. That's my email, so you can get a hold of me by sending me an email there. Okay, so right now, task 1 followed by listening parts 3 and 4, which will be an all chat class coming up in about 90 minutes. Again, this question was sent to us by one of our members, and I believe it's coming from one of the older Cambridge past papers books. I've seen it before a while ago. So I can't remember who sent me this request, but maybe one of you will chime in and say, yeah, that was me. I sent that request. So here is the question for this task 1 writing. Of course, this is academic. For general, please visit the General IELTS website. So here's the academic task 1 writing. Let's read this carefully. You should spend 20 minutes on this task. So 20 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but it's enough to write 150 to 220 words as long as you know what you're doing and you're keeping steady and staying the course. Okay, here we go, students. So let's do this. The charts below give information on the ages of the populations of Yemen and Italy in 2000 and projections for 2050. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. You should write at least 150 words. Okay, cool. All right. Anybody remember this? Who sent this to me? You know, somebody sent it to me in the last 10 days or so, I think. So Anyway, let's get into it. So when you get to these task one questions in the academic, you have to recognize a couple of important points first, okay? All right, what are a couple important points? So point number one that you need to recognize, okay? Point one is you are writing a response for pie charts and not line graphs or diagrams, okay? Or bar charts, all right? There's basically 6 types of task 1 questions for task 1 in the academic. You should practice all of them and understand how to write for all of them. So there's basically pie charts, okay? So 6 possible types. You can learn all of these in your My Student account, of course, and the way to write about these, or the ways to write about these. So 6 possible types. There's pie charts, line graphs, bar charts, diagrams. Diagrams include a set. So diagrams include comparing maps, also some kind of a process, like a manufacturing process, or some kind of biological diagram, like the birth of fish, something like that. Okay, so pie charts, line graphs, bar charts, tables is another category, and then of course flow charts, which are kind of less common, but I have seen them in past exams. So you should be ready for all of these. One of the biggest mistakes, students, and this is why I'm telling you right now about this, one of the biggest mistakes is that students write about pie charts as if they're looking at line graphs, and that's not true. What's the difference between pie charts and line graphs? Somebody please answer that for me. That's a question. Okay. So keep in mind, one of the biggest mistakes is that students confuse these. Okay. So what's the biggest difference between pie charts and line graphs? Yeah, Bekjan, very good. So Bekjan says we don't see change between the years in pie charts. Yeah. Yeah, so Awaz says a line chart is used to represent data over a continuous time span. Okay. Exactly. And Pooja says, well, pie charts also show percentages from a whole. Line charts don't need to do that. Exactly. So that's a key difference, and that's a very common mistake that students make, is they confuse that, okay? So you're right, Pooja, about the total, the 100% as well. So line charts show continuous data usually over a span of time, while pie charts show a total amount of data for a specific time period. Okay, yeah, that's super important. So here, when we look at our pie charts, and you're going to see all of them here in a minute, let's see how clear that is. It's always a trick to catch the brightness here. Okay, so here we have Yemen, the populations of Yemen. Don't worry about the data on the inside yet. And you have 2000 and 2050. Okay, so when we look at the orange here, okay, this is 46% roughly. This is 57%. The orange represents people who are 15 to 59 years. The big mistake that many students make, and I'm telling you that now because I don't want you to do this when we write the essay in a minute, is a lot of students will say that the population of Yemen for ages 15 to 50 is expected to grow to 57.3%, or will be increasing. Sorry, is an even better example. So a lot of students will write this. They'll say the population of Yemen is increasing from 2000 until 2050 to 57.3%. You can't do that. Okay, you can't say that the population of Yemen is increasing. That's because we don't see that. So if you have the year, let's say 2030 here, maybe the population of Yemen will go like this, okay, or is expected to go like that because of some drought or some catastrophe. I don't know. But you can't report data that you don't see, okay? So don't write about pie charts like line graphs. Is that clear, everyone? That will definitely save you points. And it could be the difference of a half a band or a full band easily in your writing section. Okay, does that make sense? If everybody's got that, give me a thumbs up. If somebody's not clear, let me know. Okay. All right, so pie charts, you don't see the years between. Okay, we see this year, we see this year. We don't see any of the years in between. All right. Okay, Elena says that's clear. Okay, and then in these pie charts, we have 4 of them. Okay, everybody's good, fantastic. So in these pie charts, we have 4 of them. The first 2 are for Yemen for 2000 and 2050. And then the second one, of course, is for Italy. And Italy is also showing 2000 and 2050. Now, interestingly, students, and this is a pie chart that was available many years ago, not knowing, of course, the coronavirus situation. And you can see here that Italy is shown to have a lot more people in their 60s in 2050 than in 2000. But hey, nobody expected a coronavirus to come along in 2020 and devastate the elderly population. So this is why you have to be very careful about the way you explain data, especially in university, okay? Because you never know, right, what the future holds. Okay, so that's a little anecdote, quite interesting in this particular question. So the first point, again, make sure you know what type of graph or chart you're writing for. Use the correct language, okay? The second point, okay, point number 2 is recognize the tense that you need to use in your response. Okay, now here's a little bit of a tip. When you refer to data in the chart, use the present tense because you are referring to a chart which is generally true and continues to show the same data in the future as the past. Okay? However, and this is the important part here, however, when you are referring to the times shown by the chart, you must use the appropriate verb tense. Okay, I'll show you what I mean by that, so that's more clear for you. Okay, so here, the data shown is for 2000 and 2050. So what kind of tense am I using? What tenses do you think I will use for these pie charts when I'm writing my response? Again, this is what I need to recognize very quickly before getting into my overview, body paragraph, of course, summary for those of you who have time. So what kind of what kind of grammar am I using here when I'm referring to the time periods? So Elena says future tense. Exactly. Yeah, future tense because it's 2050, and that's why they're giving you this, because there's future there, and of course the past, because 2000 is in the past. The current, the now time, okay, the time that you're taking the exam and you're being graded is 2020. So we're actually almost halfway between these two time periods, which is quite interesting. So past and future, definitely. Now, if you're referring to the chart, you can use present tense. So you can say the 2050 pie chart for Yemen shows that over a third, and I'm not going to keep going here. So you see how here I'm using the present tense? The reason why is because I'm referring to the pie chart. Now, it's okay to do that. So it's okay to refer to the chart. Don't overdo it. It's usually better to refer more to the actual times in the chart. Okay. It's better to translate the visual information into more kind of human context. So it is better to refer to the time periods for the most part than the actual chart. But it's okay to refer to the chart every once in a while. Does that make sense? So when I'm referring to the chart, I'm using present tense because I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at it in 2020, and this diagram or this chart will continue generally be the same in the future as well. Okay, nobody's going to erase this and write a different kind of data. Okay, does that make sense? So when you use that, that's one of the really confusing points for many students, using the tenses for task one. And I often get that question of, when do I use present tense? When do I use past future tense? So is that clear now? When you use present tense versus future versus past? Okay, so cool. Okay. All right, so now we'll get into it a little bit. So we'll start writing the overview. And for the overview, okay, there's no separate introduction. Students, please don't do that. I know you see that on some websites, even some Cambridge websites show you this kind of awkward introduction overview. But funny enough, when students use the technique that we show them, where the introduction and the overview are just one paragraph, they seem to get better band scores. We have lots of proof for that. So unfortunately, there isn't always good communication between people marking the IELTS exam and people teaching for the IELTS exam, even within the British Council IDP Cambridge organization. Okay, so the people who create the exams, the people who mark the exams, and the people who teach for the exams are usually different groups of people. And the problem is that they don't always have the same understanding of what they're actually doing. So that can create problems, okay? What we do in our company is we look at the actual science of the exam and go from that, and it just works better. All right. So let's get into this. So let's do the overview. Okay, we'll go back to the question for the overview. So here's the original question. Okay, let's start by paraphrasing and giving some more details. Okay, so overview, paraphrase the question with details, plus report the main features. Okay, all right, so let's do that. Go ahead, members, and of course for all of our viewers at home as well, go ahead and paraphrase this. Okay. Supplied is weird, Maksud, don't use supplied. I know it seems like a synonym for given, but it's not natural in English to say the supplied for pie charts. So the given, the presented, those are okay. Supplied is weird. But hey, Maksud, the way you learn that is you try, right? And I appreciate you trying. So the given 4 pie charts depict populations of different ages in Yemen and Italy in 2000 and give predictions for 2050. The proportions of the pie charts are measured as percentages. Okay, very good. I like it, Maksud. I like that. It's nice. Okay, so just get rid of the supplied. And by the way, supplied, Maksud, 2 Ps. Okay. All right. Angelina, you can say increased, but you can't say increasing because increasing is continuous. Increased is not. Okay, Angelina, I saw that question there. Hope you caught that. So that's a difference. There's a big difference between increased and increasing. Okay? That's exactly what you need to pay attention to. All right. Beckjohn says the presented 4 pie charts illustrate the age of populations of 2 nations, Yemen and Italy, divided into 3 groups, 0 to 14, 15 to 58, and 60 and over in 2 years. You don't need to say periods, Beckjohn, in 2 years, 2000 and 2050. Okay. Yeah, so forecasted, predicted, projected, those are okay. All right. Awaz says the given charts provide information about the ages of residents of 3 age groups of 2 nations, Yemen and Italy, for 2000 and forecasted for 2050. Not bad, Awaz. A couple of additions there, corrections. Pay attention to that. Okay, Hassan says the 4 given colored blue, orange, and gray pie charts illustrate 3 different age groups, 0 to 14, 15 to 59 mid-adults, and elderly, 60 plus in Yemen and Italy. Hassan, elderly, not oldsters, 60 plus elderly or retirees. Another way to say that. Hassan, don't refer to the colors. That's awkward. Okay? And what is predicted for the year 2050? And predictions for the year 2050. Don't use question markers, Hassan. Okay? All right. Or avoid question markers as much as possible. Elena says the 4 pie charts depict the population percentage for 3 different age groups of Yemen and Italy for the year 2000 and also predicts the population for 2050. Yeah, Elena, that works. It's nice, it's simple, it's clear, it's good detail. All right. Dr. Krishna, the provided 4 pie charts depict populations of different age groups in Yemen and Italy in 2000 and forecasting about the same in 2050. Nice, Dr. Krishna. Just maybe add in that it's for 3 age groups, okay? I know I didn't really show you the charts long enough for some of you to catch that. So Mohit says the given pie charts depict information about different age groups of the populations of Yemen and Italy in the years 2000 and in the year 2000 and expected population for the year 2050. Data is measured as percentages. Yeah, it's okay. I mean, most pie charts or many pie charts do measure with percentages, so it's maybe unnecessary to put that in there. It's not going to hurt your mark, but it's using valuable time, right? Okay. All right. So I'll give a little bit here as well. So the 4 pie charts provided depict data for 3 age groups: children, teenagers, and adults, as well as elderly for 2 countries, Yemen and Italy, in the year 2000, and predictions of these age proportions in 2050. All right, let me just reread that. Of course, I'm multitasking, so I have to be careful here. The 4 pie charts provided depict data for 3 age groups: children, teenagers, and adults, as well as elderly, for 2 countries, Yemen and Italy, in the year 2000, and predictions of these age proportions in 2050. Yeah, okay, that reads fine. A little bit clearer would be for these ages proportions in 2050. Okay, yeah, because the data, as we see here, basically it's children, right? 0 to 14. Most of us would consider that the age of children. And then we have 15 to 59. That's what we would consider the adolescent and adult years. And of course, 60 and over, that's where we start to get into the elderly age, of course, roughly, right? You don't have to be super precise. So children, teens and adults, and elderly. Again, we can get to reporting numbers some of the time. It's okay. But your goal is definitely to turn data into human language, okay, into conversational, presentational language, all right? Okay, so let's now look at the main feature. So let's take a look here. I'm going to actually shrink this a fair bit for us so you can see the full 4 pies. You don't really need any of the data here. You just need to look at the pies. So here's a look at all 4 of the pies. What is the main feature? So you know that the top 2 are Yemen, bottom 2 are Italy, and you can obviously still see the slices. That's all you need to see for the main feature. So go ahead and identify what you think is the main feature that's observable here. Keep it simple. Remember that you're going to explain this in the body in more detail. So you don't need to really get fancy. You don't want to make mistakes in your overview. You want that to be clean. It's the first impression for your writing skills for the whole writing section. Remember that, okay? So it's the first impression for the whole writing section, your overview. So you want to keep it clean. So don't overcomplicate, okay? You can get into it in the body paragraph. All right, Beckjohn says, at first glance, it is apparent that most populations aged between 15 and 58 in both countries, regardless of the time period. Okay, yeah, that's a kind of a correct observation. In 2000, in Yemen, you actually have 50.1% of the population being 0 to 14. So it's not quite true, Beckjohn, for this first pie. So be careful with it. And again, it's maybe a bit too much detail. Okay, try it again, Beckjohn. See if you come up with something. So you'd have to say with the exception of the year 2000 in Yemen, but it's maybe not the most apparent here. Okay, again, look beyond the most and the least. Look beyond the most and the least. Okay. So even though a lot of students, their first instinct is to think about most and least, always take a second step for your main feature and think, is most and the least the most apparent here, or is there something else that I can see? Okay. All right, and I really like what Karen Veer is writing. So Karen writes, at first eye shot, the population changes for every age group significantly in both countries in these time periods. Okay, so Karen, I corrected a little bit of what you're writing, but your content is perfect. So this is the interesting point, students, is that content is often more important than actual language use. Now, of course, the two together gets you your high band scores, okay? But Karen is right that what we notice when we look at these is there's significant change in the populations of both countries, and there's significant differences between the countries, Okay, so when you're looking at multiple pie charts, students, what you're really looking at is this comparison within the country, right? So within Yemen and within Italy. And then, of course, you're looking at this comparison between the countries, right? Okay. So you could even do this, but that's way too complex for the IELTS. It's unnecessary. So this is basically what you're looking at. Now, if we look at these comparisons, right, we can see that there's significant changes or significant differences within each country for these time periods and compared between these countries. And that's what would be the best statement for your main feature, okay? Again, go beyond most and least, all right? And again, avoid colors. So Angelina, avoid referring to colors, okay? It's just like what I said, I think, to Hassan a little bit earlier, okay? All right, so try to rewrite that, students. Rewrite what I just showed you here, or what I just told you here. Please rewrite that main feature, okay? And then we'll get more into it. All right, so rewrite it. Let me see a better main feature. Okay, it's not a good idea, students, when you have multiple pie charts like that, where you have multiple variables, so you have countries and years, you have those variables. It's not a good idea to group them all together. Like when looking at all 4 pie charts, we can see that. 15 to 59 makes up the largest population. That's kind of weird anyway, because that's the largest age group in the human lifespan as well. Okay, Angelina, you don't need to see the legend for the main feature. That's why I wasn't going for that yet. Okay, so my main feature here should be something like, where's my, okay, here we go. So my main feature should be this. At first glance, and I hope many of you are writing the same, okay? So at first glance, it is clear to see that there are significant shifts of age populations of So at first glance, it is clear to see that there are significant shifts within each country's population in these 2 time periods, as well as between the 2 countries, or name them, Yemen and Italy. Okay, all right. So Pooja says, at first glance, we see that there's significant variation between the populations, both within the countries and between the countries for the given data. It's not, given time period. Yeah, Pooja, it works. Okay, Pooja, that's fantastic. So that's your band 9 main feature, okay? That's your band 9 main feature. Everybody reading Pooja's there, you see how clear that is for recognizing that as the main feature of these 4 pie charts. Beckjohn says, at first glance, it is apparent that all age groups experience significant alterations in both countries and years. Beckjohn, that's good. Use present tense because we're actually referring to the pie charts here. Okay. Elena says, at first glance, it is evident that there are striking changes in populations for each country in the time period that is given, and between the two countries. Elena, finish it. And between the two countries. Much better. Do you see that, students? How that makes for a better main feature here than saying the biggest group is 15 to 59 with the exception of 2,000 in Yemen. So do you see how that's a more valuable and accurate assessment of the main feature? And it's not more complex. Simple is not always easy, but it's definitely not more complex. Okay. All right, so I'm going to grab my overview out here and stick it underneath the pie charts now so that we can continue on with our analysis. Okay. Elena says, yes. Dr. Krishna says, yeah, it has to be quality writing. Exactly. I mean, that's why it's an academic version of the IELTS exam. It's definitely not just testing your English. A lot of students realize that too late. So you're right, Dr. Krishna. Yeah, quality is so important, and quality is more important than quantity. Okay. All right. So here's the overview. The 4 pie charts provided depict data for 3 age groups: children, teenagers and adults, as well as elderly for 2 countries, Yemen and Italy, in the year 2000, and predictions for these ages proportions in 2050. At first glance, it is clear to see that there are significant shifts within each country's, and it's a plural here, so I have to be careful because each country's, there's 2 countries. Well, no, it's telling, well, yeah. There we go. Population in these 2 time periods, as well as between Yemen and Italy. Okay. All right. So that's my overview. Now it's roughly looking the same as yours, hopefully. And now we can go on to the analysis. Now, another reason, students, that you really want your main feature to be accurate, because your main feature is kind of like your thesis in many ways. Okay, I should say it is your thesis. So based on my overview, what am I going to write in my body paragraphs now? What do you think, members? So based on my main feature, what do you expect to read in my analysis? What do you expect to read first? What do you expect to read second? And that will make a lot of sense, right? To move nice and smooth and quickly through this response. So based on this, what do you think I will write about first? What do you think I will write about second? Yeah, so Angelina says the shifts within countries first. And then I'm sure Angelina knows that it will be between countries second, right? So first I'll be comparing 2000 to 2050 Yemen, then I'll compare 2000 2050 Italy, and then I'll compare Yemen and Italy, right? Makes sense. So that's what we're going to do, and that's my points for comparison. So first of all, I'm looking at Yemen, okay? Now, Yemen, here we have 3.6% over 60. Okay, orange, that's the teens and the adults. And then, of course, here, the 50% and the 37%, that is the age group for the children. Okay, so blue is children, teens and adults, elderly. This, not so important. What's the biggest change that's happening? This change here, right? So my point number 1 will be this shift here. Point number 2, if I'm a band 9 level writer and I'm super fast and I can do 250 words in 20 minutes, which some people can, okay, then you might report this, the over 60, changing from 3.6 to 5.7% of the population. But personally, if I'm going for a band 7.5 or 8, I would not write about that because it's insignificant data. Okay? So first of all, I would write about this shift here, that there is going to be an increase or an expected increase in not increasing, remember it's not a line graph, an expected increase from 46 to 57% in people who are in their teens and adult years, and a drop from 50, which is half, to just over a third for people, for children. Okay, so go ahead, students, and write that. Pay attention, make sure that it doesn't sound like you're writing about a line graph, okay? No continuity, so nothing that seems like it's continuous change, okay? So go ahead and write this difference. This point number 1, I'm going to do the same. All right. So 46.3, 57.3, 50.1, 37.0. Okay. And remember your tenses, students. Remember your tenses and remember referring to the times. So let's do a bit of writing and then let's compare that point number 1. Now, of course, in the official IELTS, you should indicate all of your points before you begin writing, but because I showed it to you, we're going to do it a little bit differently to keep moving right now. Okay? All right. So let's did a bit silent there. Gave you a little bit of time to think as well. Okay. So Charlie Sen says, looking at the pie charts in more detail, we see in 2000 the percentage of adolescents and adults for Yemen is around 46%, and children is about 50, whereas in 2050, I'm going to make a quick correction here while I was reading yours. Yeah, children, not elderly, right? Make sure you have accurate data. Okay. Yeah, so Charlie, I'm going to go back to what you're writing there. Charlie says, looking at the pie charts in more detail, we see in 2000 the percentage of adolescents and adults for Yemen is around 46%, and children is about 50%. Comma, not period, whereas in 2050, teenagers and adults increase. Okay, not bad, Charlie. Maybe split that into 2 sentences and you'll get a bit more clarity there. Okay. All right, again, remember students, we're translating data into human language as much as possible. All right, so it's easy to understand for somebody who is not necessarily dealing with statistics. Okay, Mohit says, to begin with, Yemen, at a closer look, shows that teenage and adult populations was around 46% in the year 2000. However, the same is expected to see not an increasing trend. That's exactly what you cannot do. That's what I'm emphasizing, Mohit. Increasing trend is absolutely a line graph. We do not see a trend here. And an increasing trend is absolutely not. So you'll lose marks for that, okay? They'll be like, okay, this student practiced for a line graph, but they didn't practice for a pie chart. That's the problem that happens, Mohit. Is the examiner will go, oh, this student read a lot of books and practiced vocabulary for line graphs, but not for pie charts. They'll have trouble in university. I'm dropping their score on this to a 5, 5, 6 at best. Okay, so careful with that. No increasing trend. Okay. All right. Elena, at closer look, the age group 0 to 14 held almost half of the population in the year 2000. Whereas it is predicted that in the year 2050, it will be 1/3 of the population. Okay, good, Elena. That's a good one for that. Okay. Pavan says, looking at the pie charts in detail, it is clear that the elderly population of Yemen had a populace of about half in 2000. Pavan, it's not elderly. Sorry, I made a mistake there, and I think you're copying my mistake. It's children, okay? Blue is the children there. The elderly is that small gray area, okay? All right. This is what I have, students. I'm just moving along here. I want to get a little bit more into this. So at closer observation, the child population, it shouldn't even be children. The child, that's more accurate. The child population of Yemen made up half of the populace. Half of the, I don't like the word population and populace, even though they're different word forms, it's still the same word. So I'm going to use citizens. Okay. You can use people as well. So one more time, at closer observation, the child population of Yemen made up half of the citizens in 2000. However, this will be just over 1/3 in 2050. On the other hand, the group of teens and adults between 15 to 59 comprised less than half of citizens at the turn of the millennium. But this number this group, let's take out number, and let's correct the tense here, will be nearly 60% half a century later. So at closer observation, the child population of Yemen made up half of the citizens in 2000. However, this will be just over 1/3 in 2050. On the other hand, the group of teens and adults between 15 to 59 comprise less than half of the citizens at the turn of the millennium, but this group will be nearly 60% half a century later. All right, now we're moving along. Okay, so let's see, what do we compare next? Of course, it's Italy. Now in Italy, we have quite a bit of change, starting namely with the group of teens and adults. So we have 46.2% of people being teens and adults in 2050, and that's 61.6% or was in 2000. So I would start my point number 2 with this. Okay, and then the elderly, which was this here. Okay. And then last but not least, if you really have time, there is a slight change in children, so perhaps you would do 4 here, okay? All right, now if you don't have time, then you can leave this smaller group. And instead, what you can do is you can make comparisons between Italy and Yemen, okay? Now, if you're really adamant and you have the ability to write 250 words, you can compare between each year. Okay, so that would be your 4-5, or you can just do a general comparison between these and compare, generally speaking, the changes between Italy and Yemen. Okay, so Italy and Yemen. So that could be your point number 5, and then maybe a summary. Okay. All right, members, unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this class. I don't want to rush all of those comparisons, but this pie chart is available online. If you type in pie charts, Yemen and Italy, you'll get these pie charts. So finish this essay, send it to me by email. I'll give you a score estimate. And later on in the next few days, I'll do the same, and then I'll post it on the YouTube community board. The important points for today's class, which I did cover for you, are how to analyze pie charts, making sure that you're not confusing them with line graphs, paying attention, of course, to the tenses of the time periods that are shown, and importantly, being accurate with the main features so that you have a very accurate outline thesis for your analyses and body paragraphs, okay? So again, I definitely challenge you and urge you to find this pie chart, send me your finish, and I'll let you know. And again, students, focus on human language. Try to avoid too many percents, like talking about, 46.3% to 57. No. Human language, a third, a quarter, little over a half, and use the actual time periods rather than referring to the pie charts. Is that clear, everyone? What the assignment is there? And then send it to my email, and I'll let you know, yeah, that's good, or you should pay more attention to using human language, or careful about line graph confusion mistakes. So I'll definitely give you a little bit of feedback as my time permits, okay? And in about 30 minutes, I'll host another class, which will be listening section part 3 and part 4, continuing from yesterday's listening test, okay? I'm glad that that's clear. Maksud, Elena, Hassan, good. Dr. Krishna, Pooja, I'd love to see your work as well. Angelina, okay. All right, everyone. Again, for all of our viewers, to join our premium packages, visit us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Bye for now. Hopefully, I'll see you shortly.